Howdy, Twitchers. Welcome back to the DJ Times Twitch channel. As we get closer to our annual trade show convention, DJ Expo, which we have recently rebranded as DJX, our Twitch channel will preview some of the events that we'll present to you this coming August 9th to 12th at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. And this week we bring you New Jersey-based DJ Mike Walter, who is one of America's most successful mobile entertainers. At DJX, Mike will helm 2 sessions. On August 9th, he'll present Get With The Programming, which will offer tons of tips to help DJs program their sets and raise their events to new levels. Then on Wednesday, August 11th, with the help of Connecticut-based DJ Todd Powers, he'll co-present Forever Young, Aging Gracefully and Staying Relevant in a Youthful Industry, which will deliver some wisdom and inspiration for jocks of vast experience. Walter has made a successful career of booking and working a variety of events, and in doing so, he has emerged as one of the mobile DJ industry's most respected voices. As a performer and a businessman, he's among America's best. So please welcome Mike Walter. Welcome aboard, Mike. How you doing?
Thank you, Jim. That was an awesome introduction. I appreciate it.
We do the best we can, and we appreciate all of the work you've done with us over the years. And before we get into that, I see that you've really gotten right back into the swing of things. You seem to be pretty booked up these days.
We are as busy as ever. If you can imagine, like basically we took last year off, and so now we're doing all of last year's weddings plus this year's weddings. So yeah, it's been pretty intense. Not complaining, but it has been pretty intense.
It's a good problem, and we're all sort of diving back in at a very odd rate and a very strange pace. But you know, we're still in this industry, and but before we get deeper into what you're doing these days, I want to get into music, because it's funny. You and I get together, and not every DJ always talks about music. They often talk about marketing. They talk about ways to get your name out there, gear, a lot of things. But a lot of times music seems to be the last thing they talk about. But you and I, it's often the first thing. What got you into DJing?
Either music or baseball. Music or baseball.
Well,
is usually
we do
our
talk
topics.
baseball. Yeah, we'll try not to bore people to tears with that. But
Right.
for anybody who cares, I'm a Braves fan and Mike is a Mets fan, which should make us mortal enemies. But somehow we get along. But I want to get into how this all started for you, because you've written books about this. You are really, really a music fan with a diverse tastes. Where did it begin?
It actually began in, I guess, the early 80s. I got my hands on a book called No One Here Gets Out Alive, which was a history of the Doors. And I read that, and I really barely knew. I mean, I was 14 at the time, probably, and I barely knew the Doors. And it just got me so much into their music, and it got me into the stories behind creating the music and everything else. And that book singularly just launched my fascination with the world of music and the artists I created. And I'm a voracious reader, and I'd say probably 50% of the books I read are books about a band or an artist or autobiographies by an artist. I love them.
I love that stuff myself. And in fact, I do remember that book. I think maybe I'm a little older than you, and I was already a Doors fan. And I remember reading it. I think I was a freshman in college down at the University of Georgia. And I remember reading the book and thinking, wow, I didn't know that Jim Morrison was such an asshole.
Yeah. It is amazing when you read about some of these artists. They are assholes sometimes. I mean, listen, if you can see my backdrop, Prince, I'm a big Prince fan. Prince could be a bit of an asshole, and there's a lot of people who describe what a jerk he was. But I think you have to take those two things part and parcel. You can't separate the talent from the personality, and sometimes you just have to take them as both.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's better not to be around them. Sometimes it's better to just appreciate what they do.
What's the saying? Never meet your heroes.
Yeah. And that has happened a couple of times, I got to say.
Right.
But so it was, you dove into the Doors. Were you a radio guy? Did you like dance music? Were you into hip hop or rock music when you were coming up? Where did it
everything,
start?
Jim. I always say, like, if I was a little bit older and I was of club going age in the late 70s, I don't know whether I would have been a CBGB's guy or a Studio 54 guy, because I love both. I love disco. I think dance
Sure.
music is, I mean, it's been my career, but I also, you know, I love the Ramones and Television and some of those hardcore bands that were coming out of
Blondie,
CBGB.
Talking
So
Heads. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I don't know, but I think that just speaks to there's very little music that I don't like, and especially no genres that I don't like. You know, maybe some specifics within them, but I have appreciation for pretty much everything.
Well, yeah, that is really good for you because you play all kinds of different types of events. So let's move up into your career in terms of DJing. Now, I know that you started, I believe, with Star DJs, correct?
That's right. Late 80s, started out with Star DJs, which you guys I know did a lot of work with DJ Times
Sure.
and DJ Expo back in the day. And that's really my first introduction to you guys. I was at that Orlando show, which I don't know what year was that,
1991, October
91. So
1991. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we met John Murphy and Rick Galdi, I believe it was in 1990 at Merv Griffin's Resorts. And of course, you know, they made quite an impression. I mean, they're very
Yes.
you know, they were very confident and they were like almost intimidatingly so. It was kind of like, wow, who are these guys? You know, and they had a
Yep.
whole coterie, just a whole group of DJs with them. I was like, okay, these guys are serious. And over the years, I got to know John quite a bit. And in fact, we had Yankee season tickets for a couple of years. And he is quite a force of nature. What did you learn from your stint at Star DJs?
I think the biggest thing I learned, Jim, was that what we do is teachable and it's repeatable, you know, and I think a lot of DJs are afraid of that. A lot of DJs are afraid to bring in somebody new and mentor them and teach them everything they know and get them started under their umbrella. And I don't know whether the fear comes from they're creating their competition or this person will eventually let me down. But I learned that at
Mm.
Star that that you should not be afraid to build a staff. And so when I left them and I started Elite, that was my number one goal. It was never just to book myself, but it was to replicate what I do and build up a staff. And that's where we're at.
Let's talk about performance. What did you learn in terms of performance and putting on events, actually getting behind the mic or behind the decks?
Yeah, you know, Star's emphasis was always more on the MC thing rather than
Hmm.
the DJing thing, which has evolved through the years because that is much less important nowadays. I don't bring a sequin jacket out with me like I used to during my Star DJ days, and I don't jump up on speakers, and I don't tell like 5 minute long intros into songs. It's much less the emphasis on the MC, whereas the emphasis nowadays is on the DJing. But you know, I was just saying this to somebody the other day, though the way we do things has changed, the ultimate goal, which is making it a fun party and packing the dance floor, those things have never changed. So whether you do it this way or whether you do it the way we do it nowadays, it's still the ultimate goal is to have everybody leave the party going, oh my God, I've never danced this much.
And let's talk a little bit about your market. I mean, you are in a really, really rich market for a lot of events. For those
Yep.
who don't know, Mike is in South Jersey, I would say that
Really central
South
Jersey. I
Middle.
mean, if you look at a map, it's so funny because northern Jersey people call me South, but if you look at a map, we're really halfway down the state.
Okay, you're not Oakland, New Jersey, but you're not Cape May either. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the thing is, you have events that go from the Philadelphia area all the way through the state of New Jersey, south,
Yep.
and all the way into New York. That's a lot of weddings. That's a lot of bar mitzvahs. That's a lot of corporates. That's a lot of events. How do you keep up with it all?
Uh, Listen, I got a great staff. That's the biggest thing. And now a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've instilled in them from day one how important this job is and how you don't phone out sick and you show up every day ready to perform your best. But a lot of it has to do with the fact that I can really, really lean on my staff and rely on them, and they never let me down. I've had people say to me, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you handle 18 DJs on a Saturday night, and don't you have headaches, and don't you lay awake at night worried? And I really don't, because I trust fully in my DJs, and they're going to show up each and every weekend and kick ass.
So how do you get this group of talented DJs? How do you find them? How do you nurture them? How do you turn them into real entertainers?
Finding them is an arduous task. I mean, there's you can go traditional, you can place help wanted ads, and you can bring people in, but a lot of it has to do with just having your eyes open at all times and looking for talent in any place. I mean, I would say half of my staff are DJs that I spotted in my everyday walk of life and said, "Hey, you'd make a great DJ. You should come aboard." One of my favorite examples is Phil Walsh, who next year will celebrate his 20th anniversary with the company. I did his wedding 21 years ago. And at his wedding, he's a good looking guy and he was dancing all night and had a great personality. And at his wedding, I said, Phil, you should be a DJ. I said, call me when you get back from your honeymoon. And he did, and he trained, and he's been headlining with us for 19 years now.
So you're looking for somewhat of an it factor with personality, with moves, with looks, abilities.
Yeah, there's a number of different traits that I look for, and look and outgoing personality and love of people and love of music are some of the most important.
Let's talk a little bit about the evolution of the mobile DJ. When you started, I'm assuming you were playing vinyl.
Vinyl, yep.
And you transitioned through CDs. And what is at Elite? What are you guys using for the most part? Are you doing Serato?
Jim, we're all over the map. I've never made anything equipment wise universal, just because I know every DJ has their own preference. Mm-hmm. I'd say most of the guys I think are on Serato. I'm a Serato guy. I love it. But I know some guys use virtual. I know I have a DJ or two that's on Tractor, and now Rekordbox is becoming the bigger one. So I have a few DJs on Rekordbox. So, but listen, I've used them all. They're all fairly interchangeable. I mean, we do some showcases where maybe a guy will show up with virtual, and I'll get behind the decks, and I can operate it at all. The analogy I always use is I've never driven your car, you've never driven my car, but if you gave me your car keys, I could figure out your car.
It's the same time. Drive it.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about some of the important aspects and the differences of starting a DJ company now and back in the day. What are the challenges now that didn't exist back then?
I'd say the biggest challenge now is just that there are a lot more, and I'm speaking specifically about my market, there's a lot of competition. Star was pretty much one of the first ones on the scene. And I think one of the reasons why John and Rick had such great success early on was, they were early adapters to the mobile DJ industry. And so they were a bit unique, and that's not the case 30 plus years later. It seems like every time I turn around, we have a new competitor. We have somebody new in the market who's got a flashy new website and some cool social media stuff. And they look formidable. And so I think that's the biggest challenge right now in my market specifically, is that you're not going to stand out. You're not going to be unique. It's really hard because there's so many people out here.
But at the end of the day, performance and referrals are really as big as anything, right? Just because you have a great social media.
Exactly.
Just because you're a social media ninja doesn't make you a terrific performer.
Yeah. To me, we do a lot of advertising. We do a lot of showcasing, but every year, at the end of the year, almost 2/3 of our work comes from word of mouth. And that's just referrals from guys going out there week after week and doing a great job, and people grabbing our business card, or brides telling, their friends about us years and years later, which sometimes that's the greatest thing. You'll get a referral from an event that was 9 years ago. That speaks a lot about the indelible nature of what we do.
And how would you break down the segments of the market, like weddings as opposed to mitzvahs, as opposed to corporates, sweet 16s, etc.? What is the biggest part for you?
The biggest part for us, no doubt, is weddings. We are mostly a wedding company. We'll take the odd mitzvah here and there, not the big production mitzvahs. We turn those down just because I don't have a staff of dancers and the staging and some of the bigger things. Corporate work is seasonal for us. We do some holiday events in December, but not a lot. I know a lot of guys that have dove deep into that. They do a lot of the conventions and things like that. We just haven't gotten into that. Our focus has really been on weddings, and then the other events like Sweet 16s and some of the other things just come along with that.
Let's talk a little bit about DJ Expo. You've been involved with the show going back to the 90s, and we've been fortunate to have had you to host our Entertainer of the Year competition, which at the time was called DJ of the Year, and you did it very well for 15 years, and we
Thank you.
greatly appreciate everything you've done for us. And it really gave the show quite a boost. And I was just curious to get you to talk a little bit about the event and how you helped create something new and exciting for DJ Expo. How do you look back on those years?
I look back. Those are some of the greatest years of my career. Some the highlights of my career were doing that. It was a very hard decision for me when I finally stepped down from it. But as I approached 15 years, I just felt like I put my time in, and it was a very time-consuming thing as far as organizing it and the production beforehand, which is why I finally stepped down. But yeah, Jim, I have such great memories. I remember when I first started, we were at that convention center. The hotel was the Sheraton and the convention center. And I don't know if you ever noticed when you walk out that front door of the Sheraton, there was a statue. I'm drawing a blank. Who was the MC who did Miss America? Was it Bob?
Burt Parks.
Burt Parks. There was a statue of Burt Parks, and it's a great statue down there because he's extending the Miss America whatever. I'm drawing a blank.
Laurels or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so women can kind of stand underneath it, but I used to stop at that statue on my walk over to the DJ of the year competition and just like channel him. I used to say, dude, I know you were smooth. I know you were the great MC. I said, please just, help me out tonight. Help me be half as smooth as you ever were. So I did my first couple years there, and then we moved to the Taj Mahal where we were in the Casbah for years. And that was a great room. And then we wrapped up in the Black Box Cabaret, which I had great memories from that place too. So they were all great shows. I loved it. I loved being a huge part of it. I considered it an honor when you guys first asked me, and I'm proud of the work that we did for 15 years.
Well, we appreciate it, and it's very similar to how you deal with your DJs. The whole point of it is like it's a level of trust. That's what it is. It's like it's like handing the ball over to the guy in the ninth inning with 1-run lead. It's like I think you can get these three guys out, And
I remember the first couple years after I did the show, I would be like, I wonder if they want me back next year. I wonder what, and I would finally like email you and say, hey Jim, I'm just wondering. And I think finally, like after year 4 or 5, you finally went, Mike, when the day comes that we don't want you back, we'll tell you. Until then, you're back every year. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. That was it was a very nice exchange. I'll never forget.
Well, I mean, I think it was a mutually beneficial thing for both of us. And again, unending thanks for that. So outside of the Entertainer of the Year, DJ of the Year competition, what are some of your better memories at DJ Expo over the years?
Well, first and foremost, some of my best friendships in this industry are people that I've met and gotten to know down in Atlantic City at the convention. So, I look at it as I never understand why a DJ wouldn't attend a conference, because you get to meet your peers and you get to hang out with them and you get to socialize with them and perhaps create lifelong friendships that you never would have had. So the friends that have come out of it, those are great memories. And then, of course, I've done a lot of seminars through the years. Having the opportunity to speak to my peers, and then also often my parents in the room, and having them, having the opportunity for them to witness what I'm doing. Those have been some great memories.
That's terrific. So let's talk a little bit about your sessions this year. They will be on August 9th and August 11th. What should attendees expect to learn at these two sessions?
So the first one, Get With The Programming, I'm really just talking about music and putting sets together, and when to do certain songs, when to do certain things, when to kick things back, and to me, the right songs to make the right impressions. I'm using a lot of music drops during the seminar, so you're going to hear a lot of tracks. Obviously, some tracks you'll recognize, some tracks you might not. I do talk about the advantage, or when you should look to kind of go deep and try to be creative, and when you shouldn't. So I just think it's chock full. It's 90 minutes, and I'm going to pack those 90 minutes with great information about programming, all the tips that I share with my own staff and that I use to throw great parties. So I think DJs, for the most part, music is one of the topics we love talking about, especially the music at our events. Whenever I'm hanging out with a bunch of DJs, we inevitably get into that topic. Hey, I played such and such last night. What would you have played after it? Or, are you using this song yet? Or how are you? And it's a kind of a universal thing for DJs. So hopefully that's going to be a topic that everybody can get into and enjoy, because I think it's an enjoyable seminar as well. And then the one I'm doing on Wednesday with Todd, I love this topic because I think it's so topical for
It's called Forever
guys.
Young, folks.
It's Forever Young, and it's really about staying relevant. I mean, let's be honest, we're in a youthful industry, and I'm in my mid 50s, and so is Todd. And I don't lie about that, but I'm also not 100% truthful with my clients. If they think I'm younger than I am, I'm not going to let on. But I still want to be able to fill my calendar, and I know that staying youthful and staying relevant to my clients is a big part of that. And I think a lot of DJs probably understand that message, but maybe don't have some of the tips that Todd and I are going to share about how to do that. And for the younger DJ too, we've got some tips about things that you can start doing now. So this isn't just a seminar for the 50 and 60-year-old DJ. For the 30 and 40-year-old guy, I hope you come to it, or gal, because we're going to offer some things that we should have been doing 20 years ago, but we only just started. And so hopefully if your goal is longevity in this industry, I hope you can make that seminar.
And for all the DJs out there who are interested, I can say this: Mike's seminars are very well rehearsed, very practiced. They're loaded with information. They're funny. You will walk out of there with information you did not have. And one of the most important things about DJ Expo is you will leave the show inspired. And Mike's seminars always inspire, and we greatly appreciate everything you've put into that. So we have talked about DJing for about 25 minutes, but I have to talk about Prince with you, because I thought I was the biggest Prince fanatic in the world, and then I met you and I was like, oh, he's seen them about 3 times more than I have.
37 times I saw him.
Yeah, I think I'm 9 or 10. So 37. And so where did that begin? Was it I Want to Be Your Lover, or was it Dirty Mind? Where did it begin?
It was Dirty Mind. It was Dirty Mind. I was going to high school in Manhattan, and we had this thing at the high school I was going to, which was really like the earliest file sharing thing. If you bought an album, you put it on cassette, and you came into school and said, hey, I've got a new cassette. Anybody want to trade? And I had bought the new Go-Go's album, or I guess the debut Go-Go's album. And I put it on cassette, and I went to school the next morning and said, anybody got anything new? And somebody said, yeah. And he threw me a cassette, and all it said on it was Dirty Mind. I didn't know whether that was the artist or the album name or what it was.
Or something worse. Right.
And right, exactly. Right. And this is 81, I guess. And and back then I had the Walkman, which was basically the size of a cigar box that latched onto your belt. And I took the train from Queens into Manhattan every day for high school. So that gave me the perfect opportunity. My train ride home was just about the length of an album. So I remember popping this cassette.
Dirty Mind was a short record.
I was just blown away, Jim. I had no idea who this guy or gal, I couldn't even tell, because Dirty Mind, he sings in the high falsetto a couple times. And I'm like, I have no idea who I'm listening to, but this thing is blowing me away. And I went to a record store and I found it and I bought the record, and pretty much been a fan ever since.
Yeah, my favorite song on that one is the very new Wavy When You Were Mine. That's the one I like the most. But they're all great, to be honest.
Cyndi Lauper covered that, right?
Yes, she did.
Yes,
she did. Yeah. She actually did some really cool covers on her first album, without a doubt. And I mean, I've told you some Prince stories, and I've seen him in a bunch of interesting places. Best show you ever saw him do?
I went to a show out in Jones Beach. I want to say he had just released Emancipation, so maybe 94, I guess. And it was just one of those nights. Have you ever been to the Jones Beach Theater?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's an outdoor. It's on
the water, folks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right on the water. You're overlooking you've got behind the stage is the water. And so it was just a picture perfect summer night. And it had been a couple of years since he had toured, so I hadn't seen. It was probably the longest gap in my life, in my adult life, other than the last 5 years, that I hadn't seen Prince. And he was magical that night, and it was and I had really good seats, and it just felt like an amazing concert. So it's hard to pick, but out of the 37, if I could relive any of the 37, that's the one I would relive.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate. I got to see him on the Purple Rain tour at the Omni in Atlanta. It was about a 75-minute show, but it was still pretty great. And I
Yeah,
actually stumbled across him in a secret show in Miami once, which I told you about.
yeah,
But yeah, even the last run he did at the Garden, the in the round with I think it was Michelle Monet was opening.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I mean, when he did Purple Rain, it just destroyed, just
yeah,
completely wrecked the joint.
yeah.
Unfortunately, when he passed, I saw Bruce Springsteen the very next night at the Barclays Center, and he opened with Purple Rain.
I heard that, and that was a trend for a couple of days after Prince passed. A number of
Yeah.
artists and like guys like Bruce, who you would never really expect, but I think that that just spoke to what an influence he had made in the entire music industry. That people were that moved when he passed.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people have said this. I think Questlove says this quite a bit, where it's like there's Prince and there's Stevie Wonder, and then there's kind of like everybody else.
Yeah,
You know, kind of hard to argue with that.
right.
But you did make it to Paisley Park eventually, right?
I've been there twice now. Yeah, went there right after when they first opened it up. I think it was like October, and he passed in April, so it was like 6 months
Right.
after. And it was so funny because they had not even trained the tour guides yet. Like I went. Do you know Mars from Chicago? He's a
Yeah,
huge Prince fan. So he and I went, and we literally were like finishing the sentences for the tour guide because they just hadn't been trained yet. And then I think I went like a year or so later, and they had smoothed things out a little bit, and the tour guys were a little bit more knowledgeable. But yeah, if you're ever in Minneapolis, have you been yet?
I've not been to Paisley Park. I've been to Minneapolis
It's
many times. In fact, I'm wearing my
yeah,
First Avenue T-shirt.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah,
but I've no, every time I've been to Minneapolis, I've had an event to do or something that I couldn't get away. And I think we hung out a couple times at one of the DJ shows up there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, one of these days I got to get over there and check it out.
The tour is that it's definitely worth checking. I mean, the thing is, you couldn't have gotten that's one of the I don't even want to call it a fringe benefit, but one of the changes with Prince being passed is that it's now open to the public. His
Right.
estate has turned it into. I think they envision it to being like a Graceland type of thing for Prince for many years to come. So it's not like you're in a rush to get there.
Right.
But yeah, I would try to check it out. I think you'd like it.
Well, I definitely will. And I still have the 1999 vinyl sitting right next to my turntables at all times.
Nice.
It's just it never goes away. So I want to encourage everybody to come to DJ Expo. We have rebranded it as DJ X this year, and I strongly encourage you to check out Mike's seminars if you can. They will be on Monday morning, August 9 for the Get With The Programming. I believe that's at 11 in the morning. And then we're going to do a similar time on the Wednesday, August 11th. So
I will
everybody
also
come
be
out.
spinning in between seminars. So
Oh, that's right.
if
Mike, yeah,
yeah, come up and say hello. Yeah.
Mike is going to be there the whole time. And yeah, he's a wealth of information and one of the nicest guys in the business and a pro's pro. So want to thank you again, Mike, for doing this. We will see you next Sunday night or Monday. Looking forward to it.
I don't get into late. I got a wedding Sunday, so I don't get into late Sunday night. So I'll see
Of
you.
course you do.
I'll see you. Of course I do. I'll
Yeah,
see you Monday morning.
you got it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.